Good evening. My name is Gil Fernandes, and I'm a software developer who lives in London. And today's topic is make Critic your best friend. Um, and this event is sponsored by the Brahma Kumaris in Wembley. And the Brahma Kumaris are a charitable organization which promotes the practice of meditation. Okay, so let's talk about critics and let's see how we can actually make them our good or even best friends. So let me share the presentation. Okay, so who is this critic or who are these critics? So the critics are typically people who are very nagging and who like to criticize us, and they do it repeatedly. And they are also people who we actually know pretty well. So we are not talking about complete strangers who actually come to us and tell us some, nasty things. So that's not the type of people we are talking about. So these people might really be someone who is a member of our family, or a very close relative, or a work colleague, or it can even be someone in your club or in your school. And everyone actually knows about critics. Even children know people who are very critical to them and typically nag on them. So it also applies to, to all age groups. Yeah, old people have like these naggers or these critical people, uh, young people, old people, children. So yeah, it applies to all age groups. um, yes, and so they have definitely a relationship with us, and they know us typically pretty well, because if you see it like this, you cannot criticize a person who is a complete stranger to you. Yeah. Okay, you can be racist, you can be abusive, but you cannot properly criticize this person. You can use superficial attributes, to be abusive on a certain person, but that is not what we are talking about. We are really talking about people who actually know us pretty well and know also our weak spots, and they use it very efficiently. We are talking about these people. Okay, let's give some examples. So who are these critical people? Yeah, who are around us, know us very well, know our weak spots. Yeah, yeah. So some examples. The example number one that I could think about is the mother-in-law. And the mother-in-law falls into a certain stereotype. So obviously there is some generalization here. And obviously the classical thing going on with the mother-in-laws is that they criticize all possible activities, the personality, the physical appearance of the wife. And no matter what the poor wife does, they are always critical, and they're always nagging on her. Yeah. So typically the mother-in-law, so the stereotype says that she considers the wife's needs as completely unimportant, and she is very controlling also. And obviously criticism is a tool that she uses a lot to, to implement her control. Um, Obviously there are jokes about this. Wherever you have stereotypes, you also have jokes about this kind of person. Uh, but even if, if it is a stereotype, the truth is that there is something behind it. Yeah. So yeah, so a very good example of a critical person, completely, a constantly critical person, and also controlling person, is the mother-in-law. Another type of critic in a different context. So this is the first context was the context of family. Yeah. So obviously the mother-in-law is not at work typically, yeah, but she will be at home. Okay, so another type of critic is the toxic colleague. So it is this type of colleague who in meetings criticizes our work or exposes our weaknesses in front of everybody. Um, also, very often this toxic colleague is someone who also likes to criticize others, because typically a person who has this kind of traits of criticizing people also likes typically to gossip. And gossip is always associated to two things. One is finding information about people that can then be used for criticism. Yeah. And so this is something that the toxic colleague, so this is like a bad kind of colleague. And this is also a type that is kind of very popular, perhaps not as popular as the mother-in-law, but this is also someone who is very critical and uses criticism very often to gain control of situations. So this would be another example, but this time in the working place. And obviously there is also this kind of another example, and this is more related to school um, and to institutions where there are lots of young people. There is this kind of bully that actually criticizes openly and tries with criticism to humiliate other school kids, or this kind of kid who is very smart but is arrogant and tries to humiliate other kids by, kind of criticizing them and sometimes also showing that he's kind of superior in some way. So this would be also another example of a very critical person. Yeah. So the, in this section, we just tried to have some examples of these critics. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Now let's look a little bit at criticism and at the emotional response. So if so, critic is or criticism is, is right or wrong. Sometimes there is a good foundation for it, and there is really some truth behind it, and sometimes there is absolutely no truth behind it. Sometimes criticism is related to past things that are long gone, and sometimes it is also related to very recent events. Yeah. But the person who is criticizing, so this critical nagging person, um, typically has an intention in mind. Yeah, and this intention is very often not positive. It's not out of love that he's criticizing uh, other people. Um, but what is the reason for this criticism very often? So this criticism uh, might be true, might be false, might be related to the present or the past, or even very remote things in the past. Um, but there is a reason for this criticism, and what is it? But also we need to understand from the perspective of this critic what are his intentions. Yeah. How does he profit? So this is a little bit like in this kind of crime scenes. You have to see what people are gaining from this kind of criticism. It's not a crime, but in this case, you should also check what are the advantages someone is gaining from this criticism. A criticism done in this way, which I have described now, causes an emotional reaction in other people. And actually, that's what the critics, this kind of naggers or people who are nagging you, actually want. They actually are not interested that you become a better person. They are not really interested that you become a better human being because you told them what they're doing wrong. because they tell you what they are doing wrong. Um, so they don't have these kind of intentions. What they actually want, they intend something else. They intend to gain control over you. Yeah, they intend to create an emotional response. Yeah, that they can exploit to their advantage. So, and what gives him this kick, or what motivates these people to keep on criticizing? Have you thought about it actually? Have you really thought about why people keep on, why the mother-in-law keeps on criticizing, why the toxic colleague keeps on, criticizing, intriguing, gossiping? What is actually the motivation behind it? Definitely, they gain something from it. Yeah. So there is a personal gain. It's obviously not an altruistic exercise, what we're talking about, but this is actually a bit of the opposites. Yeah. So so we need to look at this emotional reaction the critics are looking for. They are looking for a specific pattern of emotional reaction. And if this emotional reaction doesn't occur, then they might be pretty frustrated. So that's actually the truth. So let's dig a little bit into this one. So actually, they look for emotional reaction in which you actually lose control over yourself. So that's why I call it, this criticism is very often a game of control, of someone trying to gain control over you, of and this loss of control can have many, you know, it can be have many, how do you say, forms. Yeah. So sometimes you just lose control over yourself. Sometimes you feel intimidated. Sometimes you lose your confidence. Um, Sometimes you actually wanted to make a point, and then because of this unexpected criticism, you lose your words and you cannot defend your point because you are offended. Sometimes they just want to provoke you, and sometimes there are really people who actually enjoy uh, that you actually lose control because they feel powerful. They feel they have power over you. So there is sometimes a very negative motivation behind specific types of criticism. And sometimes they also want you to lose your self-confidence, or they want to attack your self-esteem because they are just jealous. That's what it is. So there are lots of motivations behind criticism, but definitely they are not very loving and altruistic or elevated and good-hearted. So there is a big, we'll talk later on a little bit about criticism and feedback and how, and about differences between these two concepts. Yeah. Okay, so the critic is actually looking for an emotional reaction, and this emotional reaction is something that they use for their own advantage to implement their own agenda. And that's what they're looking for. And if you basically, you lose control, or you have an emotional reaction, or you lose your self-confidence or your self-esteem, actually, they're quite happy about it. Oh, I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. And this will actually motivate to keep on going with this behavior. Now, if you don't have this reaction and you react in an unexpected way, like for example, you hear the critic, but you don't have an like emotional reaction, you stay really cool, and you keep on talking about your ideas and trying to prove your point in a very rational manner and very calm manner, then this might irritate them a lot. Then what happens very often when the critic actually tries to provoke an emotional reaction and it doesn't come according to their expectations, then they get emotional reaction and then they might react. So typically the way they react, these people, is to react with even more criticism. So they try again the same story. They try again to cook the same thing another time and to serve you a bigger dose of it. But if you keep on being cool, then again, they don't have success and they might be feeling pretty frustrated. Okay, it's in this case, I don't feel too much of compassion for them because it's just their game is actually not working on you. But if you have an emotional reaction and this emotional reaction is actually, you know, negative, then they will, yeah, feel, you know, more confident and they will keep on playing this game of criticizing you, yeah, and abusing you emotionally in a sense. Yeah, so criticism is often used as a tool to intimidate others. It's often used as a tool to control others. It's often used to win an argument also, you know. Sometimes people just want to push their agenda through and they just use criticism, you know, instead of really laying down really good arguments, they prefer to attack the messenger, yeah, and discredit him, for example, in front of other people, so that they win the argument in a dirty way. So there are lots of techniques used nowadays in, you know, in the media, also in politics. There is also whataboutism. Yeah, so you come with a very valid point to someone, and then instead of, you know, the other person reacting to you, what the other person actually does, it talks about something else that you perhaps did in the past, or the group of people or your party or something like that did in the past, which was wrong, and starts criticizing that, and starts and by doing so, the expectation is that the that your point that you brought up, that this point gets you know, overheard, ignored, you know. So critic can be used in very often in these kind of ways, yeah, to discredit people, to even discredit your ideas, yeah. So it's not only about intimidating, it's also very often about discrediting people or discrediting their ideas, or win arguments with kind of sort of dirty tricks in a sense, yeah, you know, yeah, trying to also criticism is also very, like I said, is used in this situation or of whataboutism, and yeah, in a sense, criticism can be used really also in the political discourse, and it is used there also very often. Now, I wanted to talk about criticism and feedback because very often people have a little bit of a problem with feedback, and very often it's a bit difficult to have a really a good you know, distinction or understand really what's the difference between both. Um, so criticism, like we said, sometimes it refers to truth, sometimes, more often actually, it refers to something that is probably not very true, or something that is exaggerated. Um, but that's not what, you know, defines criticism for me. What really defines criticism for me is the intention behind it, and I think the intention behind criticism is really the important thing, and also the intention behind feedback is really the important thing. So there is also another thing. If criticism comes just as an attack, and typically criticism is not combined with suggestions for improvement, typically, you know, it's really criticism. It's just something that is used as a tool against you, and it has only the intention of lowering your self-esteem, and also tries to kind of get you under some kind of control, you know, or like I said, it's a tool for discrediting you, or it's a tool for intimidating you, or it is a tool very often to humiliate you or to harm you in a specific way. So yeah, criticism comes as a kind of you know, a subtle weapon, yeah, against you. It is so definitely the intention behind, you know, this type of criticism is not trying to help you. There is also not a very loving intention behind it. It is really an instrument of control. Yeah. So, but feedback is actually completely different. It's like it's really the opposite. And feedback is given to you typically with a really honest intention of helping you to grow. And feedback is really necessary in many environments. Feedback is extremely important, specifically when you are trying to learn, when you are in school. So a school without feedback is actually doesn't exist. You know, feedback can be positive, can be negative. Um, Criticism is typically negative, but and because actually I forgot to talk about this, but criticism is very often paired with praise also. If people are trying to manipulate you, they will always operate with criticism and also with praise. Yeah, if people want something out of you, yeah. So if you want, for example, to do something and they are against this thing, they operate with criticism. That's obvious. And if they want you to do something that you actually don't want to do, they will come with some praise. Yeah, yeah. And then if you're still reluctant to do this, then they use against criticism. So criticism and praise are very often used as instruments of manipulation. Yeah. Whereas feedback is actually given by someone who has actually a pure intention towards you and actually is trying to empower you, where criticism actually it's the opposite. It's about taking power from you, taking power away from you. Yeah. And feedback is actually trying to empower you, to teach you something, to help you on your way. Yeah. Feedback typically is also has a much higher degree of truth than criticism, and feedback is typically bound um, to specific deeds of yours, or specific um, actions that you did, or specific work that you have done. So it is much more kind of, you know, uh, not, it's not targeting your person so much, but what you did, yeah? Whereas criticism it is very often, it refers to what you did and then comes always with this negative package of labeling you in a negative way, yeah? So this is also very important to know. And also, for example, if you are a teacher, it's very, very important that you give feedback and that you are don't go in onto this path of criticism. So feedback never kind of tries to hurt the self-esteem of a person, whereas criticism always try to, you know, dig into it, you know, really tries to kind of affect the self-esteem of another person. So if you are giving, I think it's very important, specifically if you are a teacher, if you give feedback and the feedback has to be negative for some reason, that you don't label the person as a loser, because, or the person, it will be a child actually, if you're teaching children specifically. So obviously, you know, for example, in a math exam, it might be that the kid didn't perform well for some reason, whatever. But what is really important is that you don't come to conclusions about the person. Yeah, feedback should be really focused on the exam and on the content of the exam and what was done wrong and what could be improved. But feedback should not go over to judging a person and labeling a young person specifically as you know, kind of a future loser. So you should not be going into this kind of realm of projection. You know, you should not conclude that from one single event this person will fail his or her own life completely. So yeah, so this is extremely important. So and I know sometimes it's really so hard to get distinction and separate feedback from attacks to the self-esteem or from judging a person. But if feedback is pure feedback and it's well given feedback, even if it is negative feedback, it should always refer to a specific output of a person, and it should not refer to the you know to the future of the person. It should not be an act of labeling a person either in a positive or negative way. For example, feedback, positive feedback can also be degenerated into something else if you start praising the person and start saying that the person will be super successful and that the person is much better than that a specific student is much better than other students who will have lots of success. And uh, you know so you have to be careful. So feedback comes with a certain degree of neutrality, and should come also with this degree of neutrality. You focus on what was produced, and if the feedback is positive, you say it's positive, we are happy with it, very good, well done. If the feedback is negative, you actually always package it with suggestions for improvement. Yeah. So feedback and criticism, even though they are hard to separate, the truth is they are really pretty different. Yeah. Especially, I think it is really important for teachers to understand how to give feedback. Yeah, because I also experienced this in school. Okay, it's long ago, but I experienced in schools that weaker students, they were kind of labeled as kind of people who are not going to be successful in life. And I saw sometimes, as far as I know, at least a couple of times teachers were actually wrong, because there some students, they went through ups and downs, like adolescents, they are very often very not very stable, and sometimes they have bad phases, and that's it. And after some time they really recover, and actually they become very successful. And I really saw a couple of people who were actually weak students, and they became in university really very successful, and actually the teachers didn't believe in them. And you know sometimes, yeah, you should not project things and assume too much from from what you see at a certain point in time. Okay, so we tried to talk about criticism and feedback, but a little bit um, yeah, there's some more aspects to it. Yeah, feedback, really good feedback should come with discretion. So um, ideally, I think feedback should be given in a one-to-one situation, in my opinion. Um, we should not lavishly praise someone in the front of everyone else. Yeah, if you are giving feedback, yeah, uh, yeah, because then it's something else. Yeah. Um, And feedback should always be focused on a specific piece of work or a result of an exam or something like that. And feedback is kind of discrete. I have this idea in my mind that feedback is something that is actually, given to the person as a gift. Yeah. And it's for this person. It's not for other people to see. Yeah. Whereas bad criticism is very often associated to public humiliation. So it is blatantly exposed in front of others. And this is because there is an attempt to humiliate another person in front of other people. Obviously, other people might notice it or they might not notice it, but typically, this is this kind of dirty form of criticism that is kind of used by people with a specific type of agenda. Very often this happens. So it's people, the criticism gets exaggerated and gets also, turned into a public event. And sometimes, we are exposing private details. In this kind of situation, what happens is that private details are exposed in front of other people who actually should not know about it. Yeah. Um, so bad criticism has this kind of aspect. Okay, the aspect of public humiliation. It's like in a meeting, you meet with colleagues, and suddenly a colleague, for some reason, starts kind of, criticizing you in front of everybody else, and getting really personal in front of everybody else. That's it might be an attempt to humiliate you, to intimidate you, to cross you, or even to how do you say, attack whatever arguments you or ideas you have. But okay, so this is one side of bad criticism. But there's another side which is also very interesting. Very often criticism is not presented out loudly, but behind your back. So there are people who actually are criticizing you behind your back without you even knowing about it. And people try to disseminate, critical information about you, in a kind of hidden way. So that also happens with very often with criticism. Yeah, and we actually call this kind of, criticism packed in small talk behind people's backs. I call it also gossip. Yeah. Oh, and there is also something very interesting about bad criticism. So if you really, there are this kind of, events sometimes that people, you try really to have a good relationship with them, and you remember their birthdays, and so on and so on and so on. But these people keep on reminding that 5 years ago you forgot their birthday or something like that, and criticize you for that. So bad criticism, also very often refers to events in the past. You might even now be a better person than you were before, and you might have corrected your ways. But these people come always back to that, and they always point the finger at something that you have done in the past that you probably not aren't doing even now anymore. But they keep on coming back to that, and this is incredibly disempowering. Yeah. So imagine that you are today a much better person than you were 20 years ago, and there is a person in your family who is always reminding you about what you did to them 20 years ago after you apologized 100 times. Yeah. And keeps on coming on with this kind of thing. So this is also bad criticism. It's like this kind of criticism that doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, doesn't give you a chance because, so yeah, this is also bad criticism. If people are always referring to some past events. Yeah, unfortunately, that people in our families who are really like that and really like to dig into, past events and, criticize us for that. So yeah, that's also a sign of non-feedback. That is really not feedback. Specifically, it comes also, first of all, it refers to past events, and also it comes in repeated, every time you meet these type of people, they come back with the same old criticism that they had. So then it comes also along with lots of repetition. Also with the idea that, quite a negative idea about the person on which the criticism is actually projected, because the idea is that you cannot change. Yeah, you did something wrong in the past, and you cannot change. You are someone who actually doesn't want to change or improve your behavior. So it comes with a kind of quite a negative projection there. Anyway, so yeah, I really wanted to have this clear distinction between what bad criticism is and feedback. Yeah. And typically feedback is given once. It's not something that is being, given to you continuously, repeatedly, and you don't get feedback for something that you did 20 years ago. There's no need for that. Okay. Okay. But, I talked about bad criticism, and perhaps now I'm regretting I talked about it, because is it really good or is it really bad? I think what we need to understand here is that there is criticism that you know, comes out of bad feelings of weakness, and it originates in kind of low self-esteem, and actually it, because it comes from a negative background, from a negative emotional charge, it also tries to project this negative emotional charge on the person who is criticized. Now, so we know that this kind of criticism comes from negativity, comes from weakness, comes from lack of self-esteem, comes from people who actually are aggressive or needy in some way, and they kind of produce this kind of thing, this criticism. So definitely the source is, let's say, weakness, and let's say that weakness is bad. Okay, so fine. Okay, so the source of this type of criticism is actually a bad one, but then it comes with a charge, and this emotional charge is, and criticism becomes a vehicle to project the negative emotional charge on other people. Now, it depends if this charge is kind of accepted or kind of not imbibed by the other person. So now there are two possibilities. So either the person who is actually the object of the criticism accepts it, or this person actually deflects it. So there is no straight answer here. So it depends on whatever the target person of this criticism actually does. So it depends on what actually this person does with it. So let's see a little bit more about this. So if you actually feel hurt by this criticism, or if you are left behind with like bad feelings for this other person who is criticizing you, or if you cannot face this criticism and it hurts you so much that you kind of try to run away from it, or if you actually try to react with criticism with, again, criticism, so basically you just turn it around. So then, oh, okay, then then actually the effect is definitely not positive. Why? Because actually this negative energy that was actually the root of this bad criticism, it actually penetrates your emotional life, and it starts to control your emotional life. Even if you think that, oh, I'm gonna be strong, I'm gonna hit that other person, this person hit me with this stupid thing, now I'm gonna hit and I'm punishing this person, I hate this person. No, in this moment, actually, the negative charge has entered you. You perhaps think you are being strong, you are being assertive, but actually what happened to you is actually that you are under the influence of this negative charge that was behind this bad criticism. So actually you lose. Actually you have lost. So yeah, so again, if you get affected by bad criticism, these are the typical reactions that you have. Yeah, either you lose your confidence, so basically, and you feel intimidated, yeah, or you generate dislike for the other person and you still feel intimidated, or yeah, whatnot, yeah, or yeah, or you actually react to criticism with, again, so you take on the pattern of the other person and try to revert it back. So you try to hurt me, and now I try to hurt you. Yeah, but in all of these cases, actually you have imbibed the negative charge behind the criticism. So basically you are, again, infected, let's say so, infested by the worms of, of this negativity. So you have to be really very careful. And many people actually think, oh, I'm not intimidated, but I'll react to this. I'll prove my point. I'll hit back hard. I'll be punishing this person. This kind of thing. Actually, it's not an act of strength. It's an act of weakness, because actually you have become under the influence of this bad criticism. Yeah, but it might also be good, and this is something most people don't think about. So obviously, we know that the root of bad criticism, or criticism which was kind of done with really bad faith, that the root is always bad. So that's for sure. But the effect on a person can actually be good. And how can it be good? It's like a negative charge that is thrown at the person. Um, well, it can help you to develop emotional strength. So I deeply believe in this. I really believe that obstacles in our lives, and this includes this kind of bad form of criticism, that they can help us grow, and they can help us develop emotional strength and compassion. So if you think in this way, then there is no negativity in the world for you, and every obstacle just becomes a kind of element of your self progress. So you can learn out of negative things. You can learn out of illness. You can learn out of failures. You can learn out of people who actually don't like you and reject you or have a negative attitude towards you. You can learn from these people. They can be your valuable teachers. Yeah. It's not pleasant to be with them. I'm not saying these people are pleasant or to work with or to be with or even, to have a chat with. I'm not saying that, but I say that you can learn an immense lot from people who actually reject you. Yeah. Because you can learn something that actually they don't have, which is actually emotional strength and also a sense of compassion. It seems so crazy because people who actually are emotional deficient or have a big emotional deficiency, like they are really criticizing you all the time, they have ill feelings for you, they are envious, that these people actually can have a positive effect on you, that they actually can be used as uh, you know as elements of a school, which can teach you to be more compassionate and also stronger. And so these people, without having these qualities, they can help you achieve these qualities. And this is something that just think about it, just really think about it. So basically you are there with a person who has ill feelings for you, and actually you can learn something from this person which this person doesn't have at all. Yeah, actually she embodied the obvious opposite of it. Yeah, but so how can you really do this? So if you learn to deal with bad criticism, and if you learn how to maintain a healthy self-esteem whilst being attacked, you can develop really this kind of really hero type personality, or I mean a very strong and fearless personality. And to be honest, in all these kind of big Marvel and whatnot movies, you always have the heroes, and the heroes are not heroes because they sit behind the desk and they do a routine job every day, and they are loved by everyone around them. The hero becomes a hero because he has to deal with obstacles, deal with enemies, deal with people with ill feelings. The hero can only become a hero if he confronts negativity, and this includes the negativity of others, also yours, but yeah, also the negativity of others. So yeah, can the worst critic in your life become your best friend? And that's the whole point of this topic. Yeah, actually, it's true. He really can become your best friend. But it's not out of his own initiative. It's because of how you actually deal with it, and because you are able to, whilst being criticized, you are able to maintain a very high self-esteem and also respect for this other person, no matter what. And this person keeps on criticizing, bashing you, nagging you, and whatnot, but you are not affected by it anymore. So suddenly, even though this person is not your best friend, this person is actually empowering you to gain something that otherwise you wouldn't gain. With a regular life, with a perfect life, let's imagine you have a perfect life. You have a perfect life in which everybody likes you, you have lots of money, you have a great family, you have a great car, you have lots of property, you have the best education. Um, yeah, so uh, all nature is around you, and is actually, even with nature there is absolutely no problem, and you are like in a kind of paradise type of world. Yeah, how can you develop this kind of strength? How can you be the hero? How can you be um, someone who is really beyond negativity? How can you learn that? You don't even kind of know it. If you face negativity for the first time, it will be a huge shock for you, because it's like a new world that you cannot deal with. Yeah. So yeah. So being surrounded by negativity and being able to cope with it and being able to master it can give you something, can give you, access to the personality of a hero. And what is very important to note here is that this personality of the hero, yeah, does not come with arrogance, but it comes with a lot of compassion and a deep intention to help others. Because if you develop a very strong personality and then this personality is riddled with arrogance, it's again a form of weakness that is mixed into your personality. So typically, arrogance comes out of neediness, and arrogance always needs to prove itself. So arrogance is a kind of attitude that makes you, in a sense, weak. Yeah, it comes out of weakness, and it also projects weakness specifically on others, not on yourself. But yeah, so what can your worst critic give to you? Why can he be your best friend? He can be your best friend because he or she enables you to go beyond negativity, because she enables you to develop absolute rock solid emotional power. Yeah, obviously this emotional power has to come with a lot of compassion and lots of love to other people too. So if you have strength, you want to donate this strength to other people, you don't want to keep it for yourself. So a sign of a truly strong person is a generous heart, a person who really wants to share whatever he or she has. So a hero is not selfish or not self-centered, but the hero will try to elevate everyone who is around him. So yeah, so the critic can become your best friend because he enables you to become a human hero, a really brilliant example for mankind. And obviously, that's the whole point of this topic, to talk about this point. Um, Okay, this is a bit more of a practical bit of our talk. How can you actually deal with critical toxic people? Yeah, so this should be rather a practical kind of section of the talk. Yeah, so obviously you have to check if someone actually is criticizing you. You have to see if this is a toxic person. So basically a person who has actually bad feelings, a bad attitude towards you or towards himself or herself. And if you see that, okay, the intention behind this bad criticism is really, an intention of weakness, or someone who wants to push his own agenda, wants to undermine your career, or wants to intimidate you or wants to control you in some form, if you notice that, then what should you do or not do? Yeah. So if the person is a toxic person who is criticizing you, you should not feed the trolls. I mean, do not feed the trolls is this expression, which means that you should not give a lot of private detail to this person, because this person will use all these private details that you give to him or her. It doesn't matter which gender it is. If you give this information, he will try to use this information typically against you. So try not to give too much information. Be discreet, yeah? Also, because these people actually criticize you with bad intentions, they will do this also. They will also criticize other people with bad intentions. So you should not give much information about yourself to this person. Also, you should not give much information about other people. Yeah, that's very important. So do not feed a person. Do not give, weapons of attack to a person who is actually attacking people with, bad intentions. Okay, if the critic criticizes you in public, so this comes when people try to humiliate you in front of others, yeah, with intention, yeah, with exactly these intentions. You should be assertive most of the time. Most of the time, the right thing to do is to be assertive, and if whatever they are saying is false, then just say, okay, this is not true. At the same time, you should never ever be rude. So they might be rude to you, they might explode, but you never do that. This is very important because the credibility of a person goes in front of other people specifically, goes up and down. If you lose control, if you are very aggressive, you lose credibility. People, they are generally not stupid. They can recognize a bully. They can also recognize criticism without justified causes. Yeah. So in case, for example, that the criticism is off topic and personal, you should openly say that, and you should refocus always the discussion on the topic. So this is also very important. So bring the discussion away if you can. Yeah, bring the discussion away from the personal criticism and bring it back to the topic. Yeah, this is specifically important in working environments. So, but it might also be important to a certain degree in families, but this applies more to working environments. Okay. Again, how to deal with critical toxic people. So some more tips. If the critic is trying to criticize you to get his agenda through, again, be polite and assertive. So to be polite and assertive is very important with certain people in certain situations. Don't feel intimidated by it, but even if it is a one-to-one conversation, and he's trying to push through some arguments, some ideas against your will, and you are opposed to it, and then he tries to use personal criticism to disavow you, then actually you should not focus on the criticism, but focus on the topic at hand. Yeah. So you should keep on insisting on your point of view and redirect the conversation always to the matter at hand, and ignore the criticism. Do not get. It's very important not to get angry and focus on ideas and defend them with rational arguments. This is something that these kind of people cannot handle very well. I know that because I had recently a discussion with someone, and this person was constantly trying to attack me personally, but I really had a point and I really insisted on that point, and I didn't get angry, but I kept on insisting. And at a certain point, this person who was criticizing me could not get it, could not take it, just went away. In a work situation, these are some more practical tips. Yeah. In a work situation, if the criticism is persistent and abusive, you try to move the communication as much as possible to channels which leave a paper trail. So this is important in a situation of abuse. And sometimes if you want to involve a third party, it's extremely important that you have kind of proofs. Yeah. So if you really notice that someone is really criticizing you badly and going into abusive behavior, try to communicate as much as possible through instant messengers, emails, or in any written form. Because this, in case of disputes, this might be really very useful. So this is about protecting yourself. Yeah. So there are really techniques, practical techniques, which have to do with, with dealing with critical, abusive people. Another good technique that I heard about, and I would also like to talk about that, is to simplify communication with this type of people. It's important to do that so that there is no space for misunderstandings that can actually be, used against you, because these people will use any kind of unclear communication as, as sometimes kind of a way to attack you. So you have to, with people who are actually criticizing you, have an aggressive attitude and sometimes an abusive attitude towards you, try to simplify communication. Use questions yes or no type of questions. Yeah. So this is also very useful, because you ask a question, for example, are you going to do this? And the person says, blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. I want to hear a yes or a no. And then ideally you would get this information also in written form. Yeah. And very important also, with this type of people, you should also use always kind of follow-ups to check what they are doing. If they are your work colleagues, especially, it's very important that you keep an eye on them. Yeah, because these very critical people, and they don't have good intentions towards you, they might try to undermine your career success. Yeah, and they might not basically delay too much some work, or just kind of ignore it or something like that. So it's very important to have written communication, to have extremely clear communication with these people. So simplify communication as much as you can. And I think these are really very good techniques to deal with this really nasty critical people. Yeah. But another, okay, these are like defensive techniques that you can use, but also extremely important to how to deal with critical and toxic people. Sorry, it is no matter what, try to maintain a positive outlook for whoever it is. It is extremely important that you maintain a positive attitude. It is this practice of, we have this practice in Brahma Kumaris, which is the practice of good wishes. Never let down of this practice. Never have a negative outlook for this person, because if you have a negative outlook for this person, actually you are under the influence of this person. So it means that the person's weakness has entered you, and it's embedded in your emotional life. So actually, even though you might not like the person, and you might have also reasons not to like the person, try to move away from these dislikes. And now we come to, some other technique, which is really linked to meditation. Yeah, I didn't talk about this, but okay, so we mentioned it is extremely important to always maintain good wishes for your fiercest critics, so that you are not emotionally under their influence. Yeah. So actually, you are helping the other person, you are helping yourself if you maintain good wishes for these other people, specifically our critics. Okay. This is a specific meditation technique, uh, for dealing with, these critical people, and with the emotional fallout of this interaction with critical people. Yeah. So in this meditation, which has multiple steps, yeah, you just sit down. Okay, imagine that you have had an interaction with a person who was criticizing and nagging you. Yeah. So what is the first step? So the first thing that you should do in this type of meditation is actually just to, try to understand your feelings and really try to recognize what is happening with you. Try to have also kind of see or imagine what was happening emotionally with this other person. Yeah. So listen to your feelings that you actually have, and doesn't matter if they are negative. Okay, they are negative, and you acknowledge them. Okay. The feelings that you recognize in yourself and also the other person are most probably negative, and that's really okay. So that's not, kind of the end of the world. Yeah, you just recognize, okay, there are negative feelings here, and it's there. But now, try to start with yourself. So if you felt humiliated, accept it. If you felt insecurity and pain, that's also okay. In the other person, also okay, recognize it. Now, this is this kind of important part. So what we did first um, was basically recognizing the feelings. Emptying your mental space to let the feelings come to you, so that you can actually look at them and actually feel the feelings. Yeah. Now, um, now you need to do an exercise. Now you recognize what the feelings are. So you created an empty space, you recognize your feelings. Now you try to invert the feelings. So what is the opposite of humiliation? Humiliation, what is the opposite? Is respect or self-respect, and appreciation for yourself. Yeah. So so you have feelings of humiliation. The way to heal them is to focus, on the inversion of it, on the opposite. And the opposite is obviously respect, appreciation. So if you felt insecure, yeah, then the opposite of it is confidence, and stability, security. Yeah. So yeah, so that's extremely important to do this exercise. If for example you didn't feel loved, yeah, you felt hated or despised or something like this, then probably the version is love. Yeah. So at this point in time, you are setting up the topic for the next steps of your meditation. So now we have to start practicing a meditation on the positive opposites, like for example was respect and appreciation. Yeah. Yeah. And so how do you meditate? So that is always the question. So typically what you use in meditation and in the Raj Yoga meditation, which is like meditation yoga for the mind, we use affirmations in the beginning, and then we start using visualizations. So we are going to try to meditate. So this will be a little bit of the end of our program here, but we'll try to have a small meditation um, using first affirmations, and then I will try to talk about some images, yeah, related to this topic of respect and acceptance. Yeah. So I repeat multiple times, I accept and respect myself. And not only I respect and accept myself, I also respect others, and specifically this person who criticized me. So I am a being who is actually completely respectful, who actually, I accept myself as I am. I might have flaws, but it's okay. It's not a problem. I accept myself. And I accept everyone else. And I accept also this person who's actually there criticizing me. I wish him well. I wish also myself well. So this respect is filled with love and self-acceptance, and this respect or this attitude is also filled with love for others, and with also, acceptance, the feeling of acceptance for others. So I respect and love myself. I'm filled with respect and love. Whoever I interact with in my life will be respected, and whoever I interact with in my life will be appreciated. I accept everyone around me and I respect everyone around me. I am a wonderful human being and I acknowledge my whole potential. I'm a being who is actually full of potential. I'm a being who actually can improve this world. I'm a being who is actually destined to a good life, who has a right to have a really good life, who actually has a right to be respected by everyone and who respects everyone else. My life is actually a notion of respect. My life is about respecting myself. My life is about respecting others. My life is about respecting matter and nature. My life is about respecting all souls in the world. This includes every human being. This includes obviously myself. This includes all animals. This includes also all nature. I'm a being who is actually the embodiment of respect and appreciation for everyone. I am a being who actually lives in a world of respect. And I will be respected and I will respect. Respect is my breath. Respect will be with me at every moment of my life. Okay, so this is the part of affirmations. You can be creative about it, or you can also be very repetitive if you want. You can also repeat 100 times if you want. I accept and respect myself. The only thing is that if you do lots of repetitions without variation, very often you lose focus. Okay. And then visualizations. I see myself surrounded with light and full of confidence. I see actually how other people around me, they look at me with love and respect. I see my family around me. I see my work colleagues working with me in harmony. I see their bodies full of light. I see them smiling to me, and I feel this respect that they give me. And I also feel how I respect them. And this is a deep respect. This is a true respect. This is not just praise for praise sake, but this is really true respect, which is felt by me and by others. So in my work environment and also in my family, everyone who is around me accepts me, how I am, and respects me. And I do the same for them. I also respect them. So I see these faces of these people, and I see also my face. And I see my face full of light, a beautiful light, a light full of serenity. And this is me. This is a being who is actually respected by all, who respects everyone else. A being who is in the deepest peace. Om Shanti. Thank you very much for watching this talk. And perhaps see you soon somewhere in Wembley. Bye-bye.